to First Unitarian Church of Toledo. I'm Reverend Tim Barker. I'm the senior minister here. And I want to let you know about a few things going on today. First, I want to point you out to our pew literature, which is in your pews. We have a yellow visitor card that we ask visitors to fill out. Now it says for your information, because we've expanded it from a visitor card to a card for everybody. Inside, we also have suggestions for volunteering. And if you're interested in serving in some way with that, feel free to circle items of interest and turn the card in yourself so we can put you in touch with the proper people. We also have this chalice bookmark, which is actually a points of information card. On the back of it are several ways to get in touch with the congregation. And you're free to take this home with you. You're free to take any of the pew literature with you, such as a bookmark pointing out the 7 principles of Unitarian. If you take the online offering card, it only really works here, and that's to indicate later on when we start passing the plate again that you give the offering. There's a envelope for you to make financial contributions if you want to be more secure, or if you want to dedicate it for a particular fundraising type of donation. And while we're there, I want to point out now, and we will tell you again at offering time, about today's and December 24th's offerings. The collections will be for the benefit of the minister's discretionary. Are you awake? The offerings will be for the benefit of the minister's discretionary fund. We try to fund that with only 2 collections a year as our primary way of getting contributions, and that is the Sunday before Christmas and the Christmas Eve service. So be generous. That is all of the collection besides which you have designated for your pledge will go to the minister's discretionary fund today. And we also have a few different brochures that you might want to read about belonging and membership and making a home in Unitarian Universalism. So please take note of the pew literature. In the welcome table out front, we have a book, Humanity on Trial, which is a giveaway. This was written, even though it says by Neil Thomas, we know that the actual author is a member of our congregation, Tom Titus. And Tom is giving away extra copies of this book, which was written several years ago. But he wanted to make them available. So if you need stocking stuffers, I was tempted to tease Tom and say if you've got an uneven table, this might go under. But Tom would like everyone to read it. He thinks it's a really important thing. Somebody pointed out to me that it being on the welcome table, it might be taken to be some type of Unitarian Universalist doctrine. It is not that. This is just Tom's book, and he's giving it to all kind of as his Christmas gift. Want to put out a call for office volunteers. We are starting to have a need again for somebody to spend a few hours a week helping Carol in the office with different types of work, entering things into the computer and that type of thing. If you're interested, we do have notice of that in the order of service, so look for details there. And also, I saw many of you lined up to sign in today. We've started asking you to sign in every Sunday, just in case contact tracing is needed. We also ask you for our COVID precautions and our attention to COVID. Please wear a mask, take good precautions, and while most in this congregation are vaccinated, many of us also are immunocompromised. So we must continue to take extra measures. Our COVID task force is still monitoring conditions, and if surging increases here, we might have to suspend in-service activities again But for now, we are still open and moving forward. Thanks for your understanding and the desire many of you have expressed that we don't take too many risks. And one other announcement for our Christmas Eve service, which will be at 5 o'clock on December 24th. There's a tradition of homemade cookies and hot chocolate. We're not sure how well that will come together this year, but we do ask, do you want to say something about it? Yes.
Yay!
That's what I was going to say. If you make your own cookies and bring them, make sure they're individually wrapped as well. So there's less chance of aerosol contact is primarily for that. So that was our pre-service. Let's move into service proper mode a little bit better now. And I have opening words by Clara Barton. She said, "I cannot afford the luxury of a closed mind." And as we light our chalice, these are words from David Breeden. Advent, Adventus, means waiting. And the holiday season is nothing if not waiting. To get done the chores, to find the right gift, to find time for quiet moments, to accept that our loved ones will not be as we wish them to be. We will light the chalice this holiday season, this time of waiting, to remind ourselves to enjoy the moment, the now of our lives. Yes, much is coming, and always we wait, but those things to come will also be now when they come. In the weeks of the Advent season, the weeks of waiting, we have remembered patience. We have looked to light to dispel darkness. We have pledged to be, do, and seek peace. This week, we remember the foundation of all these things, love. In this holiday season, throughout the year to come, and always in our lives, may we know we are loved. May we share the love we have, and may we be the love we wish to see. We light this flame as an end, as a beginning, as the symbol of the eternal now. Let me try this with a mask. And now please join me in reciting our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And let's have an opening hymn that is not the one in the order of service, but instead more Christmassy. The first Nowell, number 237, is what it is. We ask you to hum along if you'd like, to make some noise, and keep your mask on because the breath is still very concerning with COVID around. So, Mickey, would you play?
Angel did say, unto the earth. It gave great light, and so it continued both day and night. Nowell, Nowell, when is the King of Israel? And by the light of that same star, 3 wise men came from country afar to seek for a king. Was their intent, and to follow the star wherever it went. Nowell, 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 when is the King of Israel? Nowell, 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 Nowell. When is the King of Israel?
I see that Jade O'Neill Sweeney is here today. I don't see Violet Vivian Van Hoy, but we understand family situations, young children, parents trying to get kids ready, etc. So we might not have a double dedication today, but I invite Sierra Webb and Steve Sweeney and Jackson and Luna and Jade all to come up if they'd like to. In this congregation, Christmas week has been a time for child dedications. That does not mean we won't also dedicate children at other times of the year. I think we would welcome any chance to welcome our youngest into this institution. But today we have one new child of our congregation who will be dedicated in our Unitarian Universalist spirit. Hi, we have Jade O'Neill Sweeney. How you doing? Hi. Had world conditions been better, they might have been dedicated 1 year ago. But now that we have come back together in the sanctuary, we can formally bring this young child into our Unitarian Universalist circle in a public ceremony. I'll note that Jackson and Luna, Jade's siblings, also were dedicated as Toledo Unitarians kids. I remind you that in our tradition, what we are taking part in is a dedication, an official welcome into this community, and a recognition by name. This is not a baptism. And we wait until they are considered able to make their own decisions before they become members. What we're doing basically is taking them formally into our world and asserting that we'll be part of theirs, as if they haven't been already. Why, thank you for the mask. That's nice. Would you like it too? Okay. So today is a welcome of a kid who represents the present and the future of our church. In all parts of the earth and from the earliest days of recorded history, parents have brought their children at an early age to a place of worship, sharing their joy and dedication with those of the wider community. Traditionally, the element of water has played a symbolic part in this ceremony, for all life has arisen from the waters, and it is through water that life is sustained as it flows forward as like a river. Christian scriptures say that when Jesus of Nazareth was baptized in the Jordan River by John the Baptist, a voice came from heaven, "You are my son, the beloved, with you I am well pleased." Let us be well pleased on this day of blessing with water
that these children are beloved by our church community. Traditionally, also, this is the time to recognize our children by name, for it is by name that each of us is acknowledged as a unique and separate person. This is a public occasion shared by parents, family, and friends to mark the fact that we all have a responsibility in community for the care and nurturing of every child. It is our task to give them a world of peace and justice in which to grow. It is our task to share with them our ideals and hopes. It is our task to learn from them the zest and wonder of life, with which all children come into the world, and which we too often lose in later life. Let us not fall in our task. Now let's dedicate Jade. We'll be repeating some, let me skip over this. Let's dedicate Jade. And for Jade, I ask Jade's parents, Sierra and Steve. Do you now promise that to the best of your human abilities, you will help Jade to an appreciation of truth and beauty, uprightness of character and love? We do. Now I have a question for all who are here, and I hope your response will be, we do. Do you accept the charge to educate, nurture, and welcome this child of our congregation? We do. And now the actual dedication. Sierra, please tell us your child's full name. Jade O'Neill Sweeney. I have here a chalice filled with salt water. And Jade, this is cold. This is cold. See how cold that is? I'm putting it there. There you go. And I just wanted to touch your cheeks too. Okay? What do you think of that, Luna? All right, Jade. I touched you with salt water, which represents the sea of life from which existence began. The sweat of the children of Israel when they were slaves in Egypt, and the tears a woman named Mary shed when her son offered himself as a sacrifice for all. As it said that we are all made of stardust, we also all have salt and water in our bodies, necessary for life. With this water, I dedicate your life and thought to the good of all humankind and to your own true growing. May the blessings of an understanding heart, a wise mind, strength and integrity of purpose, and love received and given be yours and remain with you as you go forward into ever fuller life. And friends, let's all say these words together. Congregation and the families of the dedication, please repeat after me. For the gift of childhood, whose innocence and laughter keep the world young, we all rejoice and give thanks.
We all rejoice and give thanks.
May these sweet lives,
which
we have accepted in our community of ideals and friendship,
we have accepted into our community of ideals and friendships,
receive abundantly the blessings of health, love, knowledge, and wisdom, and in turn give back richly to the common heritage that endures from generation to generation. May I present to this congregation Jade O'Neill Sweeney. Good. Friends, we have dedicated Jade. May we also dedicate ourselves this day. May this occasion work its miracle in our hearts, that we may mold our lives more and more in accordance with the beauty, truth, goodness, and love we wish for the lives of this child. Thank you. Thanks, Steve. Glad you're here. Thanks. Yeah, thanks. You can go back to your seat, or if you want to go out and have the kids play in another room, that works too.
Un flambeau, Jeannette, Isabella, un flambeau couronne un berceau. Sanctissime, Marie appelle que le Maître est belle, que l'enfant est beau. Bring a torch, Jeannette, Isabella, bring a torch, come swiftly and run. Christ is born, tell the folks of the village. Jesus is sleeping in his cradle. Beautiful is the mother. Beautiful is her son. Hasten now, good folk of the village, hasten now, the Christ child is born. You will find him asleep in a manger. Quietly come and whisper softly, hush, hush. Peacefully now he slumbers, hush, hush. Peacefully now he sleeps.
Now, please join me for a time of meditation, contemplation, and prayer. And let's be thankful that this is a spillless month. These are words by David Bumbaugh. David was a dear professor of mine in seminary, but much longer ago, he was an intern minister in this congregation. David's meditation. We are here dedicated to the proposition that beneath all our differences, behind all our diversity, there is a unity that binds us forever together, in spite of time and death and the space between the stars. We pause in silent witness to that unity with 1 minute of silence.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
For our reading, more words by Clara Barton. You must never so much think as whether you like it or not, whether it is bearable or not. You must never think of anything except the need and how to meet it. Most of this information comes from the listing for Clara Barton in the Unitarian Universalist Dictionary of Biography, the entry written in 2003 by Joan Goodwin. While we look this week to December 25th, I'm moving the Jesus story to the side today to focus on the 200th birth anniversary of a Universalist hero, Shiro, Clara Barton, the nurse who tended to wounded soldiers on the battlefield during the Civil War, and who later founded the American Red Cross. Her story is not one of her advancing the cause of universalism specifically, but rather of living her faith in the world. Born in 1821, she died in 1912 at age 91. Listen to the story of her life. You can say that she was a Christmas gift to us. Goodwin's biography entry states, Clarissa Harlow Barton, the fifth and youngest child of Sarah Stone and Stephen Barton, was born on Christmas Day, 1821, in Oxford, Massachusetts, a small farming community. Her father was prominent in the local Universalist church. She remembered the church as austere, with tall box pews and high, narrow seats, where the faith was hammered out in an incongruous winter atmosphere. She loved to hear her father reminisce about his Revolutionary War experience in the army of General Mad Anthony Wayne. We Toledoans have an Anthony Wayne connection too. Clara Barton's childhood at home was difficult. Her mother possessed rage and emotional imbalance. An older sister, Dolly, was in place as the mother figure until her mental stability was lost when Clara was 6. And Dolly ended up being locked in a bedroom, Sister Sally then taking over the supervision of Clara, including teaching her to read. Brother Stephen taught Clara math. Brother David taught her to ride a horse. But when Clara was 11, David was hurt at a construction site, and Clara nursed him through a 2-year recovery. Add to that Clara being teased for her small size and a lisp when she spoke. Somehow, these experiences helped her to be a good Army nurse. As a teenager, a phrenologist, phrenology was a supposed scientific method of the time that would predict people's personality based on the shapes in their skulls, said that Clara should be a teacher, and that would help her overcome shyness. Clara did so, starting at age 16, was good at it, and she taught for 10 years. And unusual for the time, she demanded and received the same pay as male teachers. When she entered her 30s, Clara started the first free public school in New Jersey, and it was very successful. But the school board hired a man to be the school's head, and he was given a salary $350 more than Clara's. She neither liked the way he dictated as head of school or that he was paid more than she, so she quit and moved to Washington, D.C., becoming the first female clerk in the U.S. Patent Office at the same salary as the men. There's a Clara Barton quotation still remembered today in which she said, "I may sometimes be willing to teach for nothing, but if paid at all, I shall never do a man's work for less than a man's pay." Her patent office job began well, but people began to harass her and spread rumors of sexual misconduct. The workload was heavy, and she contracted malaria, a hazard of Washington at the time. And then when James Buchanan won the presidency, she was fired for her Black republicanism. Going between Washington and Worcester, Massachusetts, she studied some while unsuccessfully trying to find new work. It was when Abraham Lincoln was elected that she was temporarily rehired at the patent office at a lower salary than before, but one of her Massachusetts senators helped her to see that she was establishing precedent for women in government service, and that helped her better to enjoy her work. She stayed, even though there's a Clara Barton quotation, "I have an almost complete disregard of precedent and a faith in the possibility of something better. It irritates me to be told how things have always been done. I defy the tyranny of precedent. I go for anything new that might improve the past." Then came the beginning of the Civil War in 1861. The 6th Massachusetts troops, some of whom had been students of Clara Barton, when on their way to Washington, were attacked in Baltimore. Clara and her sister Sally put some up in Sally's home and nursed them. Clara was not trained as a nurse, but her childhood attending to sick family was of help in her new profession. When other troops from New York and New Jersey arrived, they too had been taught by Clara Barton, and she visited them. In their letters home, they would ask that supplies be sent to Clara, and she also solicited supplies from others, naming what would be best to send. Let me directly quote Goodwin's biography entry again. She returned home during her father's last illness, but was back in Washington the following summer, determined to get to the battlefield where she was most needed. She obtained a quartermaster's pass and 6 wagons with teamsters to carry her supplies through the lines. Arriving with 2 helpers a few days after the battle at Culpeper, Virginia, she unloaded her wagons at the ill-equipped field hospital and worked among the wounded for 2 days and nights without food or sleep. She did what she could for wounded Confederate prisoners. Her first experience at the front strengthened her determination to keep on with the work. Barton arrived with her supplies and skills on battlefields from Manassas, Bull Run, to Antietam and Fredericksburg, considering herself part of the Army of the Potomac. The 21st Massachusetts held a dress parade in her honor and made her a daughter of the regiment. She shared the lot of common soldiers, refusing to eat other than the same grub they were given. Time after time, a wounded man recognized her as she worked to ease his suffering. "Oh, what a place to meet an old-time friend," she wrote. Returning to Washington, she collapsed with typhoid fever, but rejoined the troops as soon as she felt able. The biography entry continues by noting other women who were Civil War volunteers at the same time as Clara Barton. Universalists Mary Livermore and Frances Dana Gage, and Unitarian Dorothea Dix. But the difference with Barton was that she nursed on the battlefields, not in hospitals or supply depots. When Unitarian minister Henry Whitney Bellows was president of the U.S. Sanitary Commission, women were discouraged to volunteer. But the War Department kind of attached Barton to her brother's position with the 18th Army Corps in South Carolina. There she met the chief quartermaster for that region, Colonel John H. Elwell of Cincinnati, who was married, and it seems they developed a love affair. Dana Gage also became a lifelong friend. There was a siege at Fort Wagner, and Elwell was wounded. The battlefield conditions were terrible. Military officials didn't want her there, and the pressure got to her, making her ill, and she went to Hilton Head. When she was ready to return, the Army rejected her, saying Dorothea Dix's nurses had been put in charge. As Goodwin's biography puts it, influenced at this critical time by woman suffrage advocate Frances Dana Gage, Barton's disappointment expanded into a view of the broad injustice done to women. Soon Barton would write, "I think taxation and representation are and of right ought to be inseparable. I most devoutly wish that intellect, education, and moral worth decided a voter's privileges and not sex or money or land or any other unintelligent principle." Barton helped Gage with her work among former slaves, and Gage helped Barton out of her self-pity. Gage's death in 1884 was a severe blow to her. But at the end of 1863, her relationship with Elwell was cooling. She returned to Washington, and she grew deeply depressed. The spring battle campaign of General Grant filled hospitals again, and Barton was again granted access to the battlefields. She finally got to a Virginia mobile field hospital. It was at this time that a Clara Barton quotation shows how dangerous her nursing in the field was. She was giving aid to a soldier, and this is her quotation, "A ball had passed between my body and the right arm which supported him, cutting through the sleeve and passing through his chest from shoulder to shoulder. There was no more to be done for him, and I left him to his rest. I have never mended that hole in my sleeve." Soon the war ended, and she had to figure out what was next. President Lincoln put her in charge of locating missing prisoners of war, and she answered many letters asking for information. Frances Gage suggested that Barton become a traveling lecturer, delivering the talk, "Work and Incidents of Army Life," and that activity made her known throughout the nation, also giving her steady income again. She met and got to know Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and she began to do some speaking on woman suffrage, being especially effective addressing veterans. But her main issue since 1870 was the Red Cross movement, Goodwin states in her biography entry. Her Red Cross exposure came through war. The Franco-Prussian War broke out when she was vacationing in Europe. The Geneva Convention had just established the International Red Cross. She offered to help the Red Cross and set up aid centers in European cities affected by the war. She was urged to found the American Red Cross. Barton was ill for 3 years when she returned to the U.S. in 1873. It wasn't until 1877 that she could go to Washington and urge the government to sign the Geneva Convention document and start the American Red Cross. And while it was largely in Europe a war relief organization, it was Clara Barton's expanding it to disaster relief that made it possible to become official here. The Red Cross was made official in 1881, but did not receive much actual support. But Barton made it known through its efforts with disaster relief, response to typhoid outbreaks, and other crises. It was the Red Cross sending nurse, supplies, and establishing aid centers. Goodwin wrote that Barton was not an able administrator, and what started as good relationships appeared to diminish. The Red Cross had a rough time coming into respectful existence, and some needed stabilizing legislation, along with Barton's doing some Red Cross reorganization, and legislation signed by President McKinley in 1900 gave it a better foundation. Barton had moved the Red Cross headquarters from Washington to a place she built on her own property in Glen Echo, Maryland, and she lived there too the rest of her life. Also during these years, she gave some attention to religion, with a special interest in spiritualism and Christian Science, both new and in kind of a boom at the time. But she also claimed, according to Goodwin, that she was not what the world denominated a church woman. Though her parents were Universalists, like too many in next generations, even today, she didn't formally join, but still identified it as her faith. In 1905, she affirmed in a letter that she was a Universalist, a belief, she wrote, in which all who are privileged to possess it rejoice. Clara Barton died in Glen Echo in 1912 with pneumonia, the cause of death. And that's today's Christmas story. Someone who actually was born on December 25th, changing the world for the better, and to top that, an ancestor in our Unitarian Universalism. So be it. And now it's time for our offering. Again, today's offering benefits the minister's discretionary fund. So if you have a pledge to make sure you indicate the pledge on your check, or you can designate the minister's discretionary fund on the check, in the envelope, or if it's not stated for any particular designation, this week it will go to the minister's discretionary fund. We are not passing the plate. We have a wicker basket up front, and we have a wicker basket at the welcome table in our lobby. So please, as you leave the sanctuary, leave your money behind with us. Thank you. You can go to uutoledo.org, click on Give, and then click on Online Giving, and make your donation that way. Or you could mail it to us as well. Now, for coming soon, we'll have a 5:00 p.m. service on December 24th. Our service is titled Sears, Joy, and Christmas. And on December 26th, the Spiritual Adventures Forum at 9:45 a.m. on Zoom is your most special Christmas gift, and it will be led by Aaliyah White. And our 11 a.m. Service will be led by our student minister, Melissa Jeter. And her topic is, Who Are Unitarian Universalists? Remembering Identity and Community. And you're also invited to stick around for coffee hour after today's service in Fellowship Hall. And if you're not so comfortable with people drinking coffee and not having masks on, you're welcome to stay in the sanctuary and visit as well. Our closing words by Clara Barton. It's just my silly sense of humor that saw that her last words are kind of appropriate for the end of a church service too. Let me go. Let me go. And as we get ready for Christmas Day, let's send our chalice flame into the community with joy that we can have such a celebration with sacred and secular ties, with relations to ancient religions of the earth, as well as to the 2,000 years of Christianity. And that in a way, the flame of our chalice and the planned fires of the Christmas season help us to see our world even when pandemic can dampen the holiday spirit. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and have a cool Yule.
Lay the little tiny child by my lay the little tiny child by my Oh, sisters, who, how may we do for to prepare this day? This poor youngling for whom we sing, bye bye,
And I have to let you know that we don't have coffee ready today,
Oh,
but you can still visit. You can go nearby and pick up coffee and bring it back. But it's social hour time anyway. So that's the service today. Thank you all.
so beaten.